All right, episode 239 of the Thadcast. Let's do this thing. By the way, the sound issues from yesterday are worked out, and I don't really know how I've got them worked out today because I'm on like less than 3 hours of sleep. So it's a complete exciting train wreck of an episode today. I'm just kidding. I have some of the best content today that we can dig into. And this could be like a 6-hour episode, but it's not. I have the notes. I'm going to stick to the notes, stick to the game plan. And even on this short amount of sleep. And sleep is important, right? Sleep matters. But my head got going. I got fired up about something in politics and all this stuff. I had one of those Facebook posts go like nuts on me yesterday, and there's like over 100 comments. So there's a lot going on in my head. And it doesn't necessarily bother me or give me anxiety. I just get really engaged on a certain level and don't always have good boundaries with myself to shut myself down properly and get my rest that I'm like you, I definitely need. So actually at the start of this episode, I sat down and I started talking and I wasn't even recording anything. And I was like, okay, let's go back and start over. So I start talking again and I look and I just glance at the screen and my mic is not even on. So I'm not even recording on my mic and it's going to sound like the episode yesterday and it's going to be a mess. And I don't know what happened yesterday. It just is what it is. So if that was your first episode, now you can tell that the sound quality is usually far superior to what you heard yesterday here on the Thadcast. And me and my $35, $40 mic do what we can, right? We do what we can. So all this going on, and I finally get the episode started. So hopefully this will go through in one take. We do everything in one take here on the Thadcast, and hopefully our prep and all that good stuff makes it happen. Whew! That's a big start. That's a big start to episode 239. So you're with me. We're ready to roll into this because this topic I know is so important for some of you, especially right now during this whole pandemic thing that we're in. So I want to talk to you today about a little bit from the book Boundaries. I had this moment recently where I was helping my son. I think it was just unpack his car when I came across it. And he had the book Boundaries. Yeah, that was it. He'd come home from college. And he has the book Boundaries in there. And I'm telling you right now as a father, there's nothing more exciting than to know your children are reading the book Boundaries. Years ago, when I was at a very hard point in my first marriage, I had somebody on the outside who was causing me a lot of grief and really creating a very negative, hard, almost verbally abusive story in my life that just really demoralized me on a daily basis. And this was a mentor of mine, and it was really hard for a long time with this person. And one of the things he said was that I did not have proper boundaries in my life with people. His idea was that I was the aggressor. When I realized, I started reading the book, I'm like, oh my gosh, that's totally not my personality. I, however, am the other person who needs to have better boundaries with people like you who are like very angry a lot. And you're yelling at me a lot. And you're saying things that are horrible to me. And I can disengage. And this book, Boundaries, made such a colossal impact on my life. So I want to talk a little bit about that today. I don't know what the title of the episode will be. I'm sure we'll come up with something catchy. But I want to share with, you know what? Maybe it's just called being a doormat, right? And here's our big phrase here. Being a doormat doesn't make you a better person or a better follower of Jesus. It simply makes you a doormat. And nobody wants to be a doormat. And so maybe what we'll need to do is a part 2, part 3, part 4 of this, but it's a continued theme on the Thadcast. So maybe I'll pick up the book Boundaries again and read it. I got another book I got to read first. Okay, so let me get to what I'm talking about today with Doormat. How do you figure this out, first of all? How do you figure it out if you're kind of struggling with this the way I was? Because I didn't see myself as a person who was a doormat. I didn't see myself as a person who was of that ilk. Do you know what I mean? Like that I was allowing people to say things and do things to me that were inappropriate. I didn't understand that. I didn't realize that I was stretched too far by too many people and I wasn't healthy in my life at the time. So here's a couple of things that helped me out when I was reading the book early on and gave me some skills to not go down that road in my life today. Although, because my personality type, I'm an Enneagram 7, I tend to be a people pleaser, right? So that's where some of the dangers come in, right? So what I'll share with you today, hopefully, will give you some insight on what you can do if you're like me. So, number 1, come to the reconciled understanding deep in your soul that you and your words and your time are not the solution to everyone's problems. Now, unless they are a child, the real solution lies within people and Jesus, right? They can work their solutions out for themselves with God's guidance and the scriptures guiding them. But don't give yourself too much credit in these conversations. Think of it this way. The greatest baseball coach in the world can't do a thing with somebody who's got 0 talent and 0 arm, right? That guy's never going to be a pitcher. He can't, someone like me, I would never be able to be a pitcher. You could do whatever you wanted to it. Listen, when I played baseball, I had one of the weakest arms out there. You could teach me to throw. You might even, if you worked excruciating on me in my prime, you might even be able to make me a serviceable player in some lower than level A baseball team somewhere in America, okay? But not everybody is going to have every gift, skill, and ability and talent, okay? So you can't fix everyone's problems. You're not supposed to be everyone's coach. And maybe the person who's so dependent on you, maybe you're not supposed to be helping them at all. So put less of a value on your ability to figure out everyone else's problems and give that to God, right? If we have our value in God's love for us in the first place, it's not based upon our actions, right? This doesn't mean that we're not being kind to people. It doesn't mean that we're not patient. It doesn't mean that we're not a good listener. But we have these boundaries in place and say, listen, hey, it's not a good time for me to talk right now, okay? Let's set up a better time. And it doesn't mean that we always answer our phone or we respond to every message or text message, okay? And that's something I've had to learn. I have messages on Facebook I need to get to from over a month ago. Hey, listen, I'll get there when we get there. It doesn't mean I care about the person any less. It doesn't mean that I'm a mean person. It simply means that I have not had time or the right moment to respond to that message. And what if I don't? Well, I hope the person still stays my friend and understands it just kind of slipped by. We just do what we can. I think you understand that the importance of not putting your own self-worth and value on your relationships with other people and how you bow to them in their moment of crisis, right? We can be there for our friends, but there's a difference to being in an unhealthy series of relationships. So I think you need to realize deeply that everyone is responsible for their own lives, them and Jesus. Okay, so that's a fun point because it helps resolve so many other issues. It really does. It really does. You're not the center of the universe on fixing everybody. That's it. That's it. All right, so number 2, think back to a time when you worked really hard on something, but things ended up going badly. You aren't in control, right? And this shows us that you're not in control of the ending of your own story, let alone everyone else's. So be at peace with knowing there are things that you will never be able to control and things you can barely even influence in this world, let alone in someone else's life. So much of this world is out of your control. If we ever saw this in our world, we see it right now. So live in the freedom of understanding that. You do the best you can in each moment with each day, but you're resigned that results are not, very often, not based upon your efforts or your heart. Number 3, ask yourself how much your feelings of self-worth are dependent upon someone else's success in their life. All right, so this happens for me with kids' grades. During this whole pandemic, my self-worth got too bottled up in kids who were doing great or kids who were bombing. Most of them in my house, bombing. It was horrible, okay? I'll throw it out there. People are like, oh, you're such a good dad. Hey, listen, it sucked. The whole thing sucked with school. It's not my gig. It never will be my gig. And I need to have boundaries in understanding that and protect my own self-worth, feelings of self-worth, and not put them in the success of my children. You can raise multiple kids the exact same way, and they can turn out completely different. That isn't based upon you. That's based upon the decisions that they're making. That's what it's really based upon. So I want to encourage you today to not put your self-worth in your children's success or your friends' success in their relationships or how your spouse is feeling in the moment, right? You're not responsible for all of those things. You're responsible for you. And that's enough for me. Wait, that's a lot for me. So number 4, everyone is responsible for their own mood and actions. Do you see the theme here? Especially your kids. You can influence your child's mood or your friend's mood at times. But that's about all you can do, right? You can punish bad behavior. You can reward good behavior. But you can't stop them from acting like a crazy person. It's just going to happen, and you have to accept that it's going to happen and not be completely devalued because of your children's bad behavior or your friend's bad behavior or your spouse's rude behavior. That's not your burden to carry. Lastly today, because we got to wrap it up here, folks. We got to wrap it up. We got so much info we could get into. I've tried to pick this apart so it'd be encouraging to you. You do not belong to anyone else. You can choose to listen to a long-winded friend for as long as you choose to listen to them. But you have the right to share with them that now is not a good time and you do have to go. You can say it very politely too. You do not belong to your spouse, okay? Now, there's things in the scripture that indicate what we can and shouldn't be depriving each other of, right? That's biblical. There are pieces of this that totally make sense, that we are kind and compassionate. Yet at the same time, you do not belong to someone else. You are free to make your own decisions on what you think, what you believe, your own body. And God gave you these gifts. So why would you be under the control of someone else when you are not required to be? He gave you free will to choose. No one has the right to take your free will away from you. You can also be very direct in your truth with others who have abusive and controlling type of behavior to encourage them to move forward in an encouraging way with you and not to treat you in such a demeaning manner. It's super important, my friends, that we nail this. It really is. We need to be able to protect ourselves and care for ourselves. And we do this by establishing healthy boundaries, especially with people who have no understanding of the such. And there's a lot of them out there, and they live on social media. They do. They do. My encouragement to you today then is to get the book Boundaries. Whoever is listening to this, if you haven't read this, this is a must read for life, a must read for life. You really will do so much better if you get it. It will help you in a million ways you can't even see. So that's my encouragement to you. This is a fun episode for me. I hope it was a fun episode for you. Hey, listen, I love comments on Facebook and different thoughts and all that good stuff. Let me know what you think. And if you can write reviews on iTunes, that's super helpful. And if you share this with a friend, that's really awesome for me too. So, all right, my computer battery's about to die. So we better wrap it up quick. So thank you so much for joining me on episode 239 of the Thadcast. I always appreciate you, my listeners. And until next time, may you be blessed.